ओम अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपा कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरोन् श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधाकृष्णपादान् सहगना ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। हे कृष्णकरुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधाकान्त नमोऽस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे. So we are here in the 33rd shloka of the second chapter of second canto of Bhagavatam. Till now we have seen in the first chapter it started off with glorifying the devotional service, but then it took a turn into meditation on the Virata Rupa form of the Lord, and then it went in the second chapter. We saw a lot about meditation on the Paramatma feature of the Lord, and then the Ashtanga Yoga process, and now gradually it is shifting to back to the pure devotional service. So now let's see this shloka here, 33rd shloka. Nahi athonya shiva pantha vishatah smar samshrita viha vasudeve bhagavati bhakti yogo yato bhavet. For those who are wandering in the material universe, there is no more auspicious means of deliverance than what is aimed at in the direct devotional service of Lord Krishna. As will be clarified in the next verse, devotional service or direct bhakti yoga is the only absolute and auspicious means of deliverance from the grip of material existence. There are many indirect methods for deliverance from the clutches of material existence, but none of them is as easy and auspicious as bhakti yoga. The means of jnana and yoga and other allied disciplines are not independent in delivering a performer. Such activities help one to reach the stage of bhakti yoga after many, many years. In Bhagavad Gita 12:5, it is said that those who are attached to the impersonal feature of the Absolute are liable to many troubles in the pursuit of their desired goal. And the emphasis philosophers searching after the absolute truth realize the importance of Vasudev realization as all in all after many, many births. So, as far as yoga system are concerned, it is said in 647 that amongst the mystics who pursue the absolute truth, the one who is always engaged in the service of the Lord is the greatest of all. And the last instruction in Bhagavad Gita 1866 advises us fully surrendering unto the Lord, leaving aside all other engagements or different processes for self-realization and liberation from material bondage. Um, okay. And the purport of all Vedic literatures is to induce one to accept the transcendental loving service of the Lord by all means. So it's a very, very packed paragraph. A lot of things are there in this. So it is here in this shloka, it is mentioned about direct devotional service to the Lord is glorified, right? So, and that is what is advised for us to take. And if we see, there are many different paths that are there. And, like some of the paths, like generally when we compare, so what are the different paths that are there? There is yoga and jnana. So these two things always, it is spoken about. So jnana means like, no, jnana yoga. Yoga means like generally it is Ashtanga yoga. So these two things are the ones always we compare with when it is coming to bhakti yoga. So jnana yoga. So here it is Prabhupada is giving one by one this one that such activities, all this jnana yoga like Ashtanga yoga and things like that, independently they cannot help anyone. So they need a touch of devotional service for it to give any results. And no, independently, Jnana Yoga by itself cannot do anything, and Ashtanga Yoga by itself cannot do anything. Ashtanga Yoga requires meditation on the Supreme Lord, as Paramatma, right? So, and Jnana Yoga also like requires access to the scriptures. Jnana Yoga means not just simply speculating something. So it requires access to the scriptures, and they definitely come across the names of the Lord and things like that. So they have to have a touch of devotional service. Otherwise, it is not possible to achieve success in any of these processes. Okay, so they need support. First, that is one point. And second point is that even their process, how difficult is that process? It is mentioned, if a person, here it's mentioned about 12.5, if a person is attached to the impersonal feature of the absolute, kleshodikatarastesham avyakta shakta chetasam. So a person has to go through so much of miseries, right? And then if a person is a jnani who's trying to search out the truth, so it is mentioned bahunam janmanam ante jnanavam mam prapadyate. So 7.19. So after many births, a jnani comes to me. Like it takes a long time, jnana yoga. And then as for the Ashtanga Yoga is considered, so 647, it is yoginam api sarvesham madgathena antaratmana shraddhavan bhajate yomam same yuktatamo. So he says that, Krishna says that the best of all the Ashtanga yogis is the one who's always absorbed in my thought. And then finally, like it comes to the point of 1866, where the Lord is saying that the two slokas are very important, that manmana abhamat bhakto madhyajimam namaskuru. So like always become my devotee, always offer obeisances to me and things like that. So this is perfect bhakti yoga. And then Lord says, don't deviate from anything else, towards anything else. Sarva dharman parityajya mam ekam sharanam vraja. So in this way, all different processes of yoga has been analyzed here. And then all other processes require the support of bhakti yoga to produce its result. And then the all other processes, even though they take the support of bhakti yoga, still they are quite difficult to perform. Or the best thing to perform is bhakti yoga directly and not go through all other yogic processes. That is not recommended. And here it's mentioned nicely that there are many indirect methods for deliverance from the clutches of material existence, but none of them is as easy and auspicious as Bhakti Yoga. So Bhakti Yoga is easy, we can easily attain, and then at the same time, it is the most auspicious process. Why? Because we are directly coming to the point. So like it is just like saying, if you take a morsel of food in your hand and then put it into your mouth, that is the most easiest way of eating, rather than going around your head and putting it inside, or like doing some circus and having the food fall into the mouth. So that's obviously it is very difficult. So we have to come to the mouth, that is Krishna. And if we go through a long cut, it will obviously be difficult and it's very troublesome. So that is what is the Jnana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, and all other processes and all. So there is one nice shloka is there which says that Naishkarmyam api achyuta bhava varjitam na shobhathe jnanam alam niranjanam. Sorry. Nashobhate jnanam alam niranjanam. Kuta punas ashvad abhadrameshware. Kuta punas ashvad abhadrameshware. I'm not able to remember the last line. But anyways, the whole point is about the thing of the Naishkarmyam. So like the karma yoga without attachment to the fruitive results. They are not very this one attractive. So Nashobhate Jnanam Alam Niranjanam. Even Jnana Yoga, for that matter, it is not very attractive, right? And then it says that Kuta Puna Sashvadavadramishware. Like, and last line it talks about like Karma Yoga. So in the Karma Yoga, like if we don't offer the fruits of our result to the Lord, so then Karma Yoga, it's like completely condemned, or it is completely it is mentioned that it is really very bad in comparison to all other things. So in this thing we can see that why these things are told about bad, because they in the nitty-gritties of the process, there is a very good chance that we miss out the actual goal, that is devotional service to the Supreme Lord. So that is why Naishkarmyam, what is the emphasis that is given? Giving up the fruits of activities. Where is Krishna in the picture in this, right? So, and then Jnana Yoga is trying to find out the absolute truth, trying to understand what is this matter, what is spirit and all. Still, no, they are there in the path, but they will get to know about the Lord after long time. So then what to speak about Sakama Karma Yoga, which is fully, a person is fully engaged in enjoying the fruits of the activities, and sometimes he gives something in offering to the Lord. So that is fully condemned, because the Lord is not there in the picture at all. Lord is like far away in the picture. So that is why all other processes are not very conducive for a devotee, not very conducive for anybody. No, this is a very important line to be meditated upon. There are many indirect methods of deliverance from the clutches of material existence, but none of them is as easy and auspicious as Bhakti Yoga. So this is really very important point. Okay. Anyways, we'll continue the purport. As explained, as already explained in the text of Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, either direct Bhakti Yoga or the means which ultimately culminate in Bhakti Yoga without any tinge of fruitive activity constitute the highest form of religion. Right? So highest Savai Pumsa Paro Dharma, highest form of religion means Paro Dharma. Paro Dharma Yato Bhaktir Adokshaje. Ahaituki apratihata yayatma suprasidati. So that is like, without any contamination, without any other desire. So we just have to perform Bhakti Yoga with full concentration. So then what happens is that, that's called Parodharma, and that completely satisfies a person. So everything else is simply a waste of time for the performer, because he's not coming to the point of Bhakti Yoga. So if he's not coming to the point of Bhakti Yoga, what is the problem? So I can explore so many different things, but the problem is I will not get shelter anywhere. So Bhakti Yoga means after attaining the Bhakti Yoga, we will get the feel of, oh, I have come back home. No, that's it. No, I'm not going to search for anything else. I have attained what what I'm looking for in all these different births, in so many different lifetimes. What I was always looking for, that I have got. So sometimes people complain about relationship issues and things like that and all. So generally we say that, see, in this world no relationship can be as perfect as as we are expecting. Only relationship that can be perfect is, only person who can actually perfectly reciprocate with us is the Supreme Lord Krishna, and we cannot expect that kind of reciprocation from anyone else of this world. Only Krishna can completely satisfy us, and nobody else can completely satisfy us. So in this way, we say that we are looking for Krishna, but then you cannot get it from an ordinary mortal. What you're looking for from Krishna. So this perfect satisfaction, perfect reciprocation, and all these things is possible only after attaining Krishna. So if we are aiming at something else, it's simply a waste of time, simply another term of frustration. That's all. I'm looking for something, maybe for happiness, maybe for a good relationship, maybe for good any aspect of the life. I'm looking for in a place apart from Krishna. It is like a animal that is searching for water in the desert, and it looks upon the mirage, and it looks like, oh, this person can satisfy me, or this thing in my life can satisfy me, but it will never satisfy. Even after we get the thing that we are always hankering for, we will never become satisfied, because real satisfaction comes only by attaining Krishna, right? So that is why it is mentioned, everything else is simply a waste of time for the performer. We have an eternal relationship with Krishna, and we have to somehow or other attain him at any cost. Okay, let's continue the purport. Srila Sridhar Swami and all other acharyas like Jiva Goswami agree that Bhakti Yoga is not only easy, simple, natural, and free from trouble, but it is the only source of happiness for human beings. So Prabhupada is giving the pramana of all other acharyas also. Okay, text 34. Bhagavan Brahma Kartsnyena Tri Anviksha Manishaya Tad Adhyavasyat Kutasto Ratir Atman Yato Bhaved. The great personality Brahma, with great attention and concentration of mind, studied the Vedas 3 times, and after scrutinizingly examining them, he ascertained that attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the highest perfection of religion. Right? So Vedesh Sarver Ahameva Vidya Vedanta Krit Vedavit Eva Chaham. Right? So, like, this is the ultimate conclusion of all the Vedanta. Ultimate conclusion of all Vedanta is Supreme Lord. And who's the person who's coming to the point of chanting the Hare Krishna mantra, the names of the Supreme Lord, who has already settled, saying that, okay, like, no, all the different processes of rituals, all the different processes of Vedic studies, everything, culminates or ends at the point of what? The Supreme Lord. And that personality, of Supreme Lord is non-different from his name. And if I'm chanting the names of the Lord, that is the end of all the Vedic understanding. That's the perfection of Vedic understanding. So that is why in the scriptures again and again it is mentioned that for a person to come to the point of chanting the names of the Lord, it is the highest platform of executing any sort of religious principles. This is the highest form of religious principles. And it may appear very simple, it may appear very, very easy, but then this is the highest principle, that is there. We can technically also see that, Lord Brahma, after studying Vedas 3 times, scrutinizingly, he come to the point that attraction to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna is the highest perfection of religion. And that is possible just by chanting the names of the Lord. Right? So Sri Krishna Nama Charitadi, Sithata Vidya, Pittopatapta Rasanasya Narochikanu, Kintvadarat, Anudinam, Kalusaiva Justad, Swadvi, Khamad, Bhavati Tadgata Mula Hantri. So, like, this names of the Lord is like bitter, for a person who's materially contaminated. But then, even though Kintvadarat, like, we have to every single day chant the names of the Lord with absorption and attention. So then Swadvi Kramad, Kramena means like dire dire. So Swadvi, like Swad, the taste of the names will gradually arise in a person who's regularly chanting the names of the Lord. And then that becomes a really very powerful force for him. So what Lord Brahma has ascertained after studying the Vedic literatures 3 times, scrutinizingly, we can just take the conclusion from such a great personality, and then we can just put our focus fully on chanting the names of the Lord with absorption and with a lot of attention. So we will also attain this great treasure of absorption or attraction towards the Supreme Lord. Right? So let's see the purport. Sri Sukadeva Goswami is referring to the highest Vedic authority, Lord Brahma, who is the qualitative incarnation of Godhead, Guna Avatar. So there are 3 Guna Avatars. So Lord Brahma, Lord Vishnu, and Lord Shiva. So this is, Lord Vishnu is the incarnation of Sattva Guna, and Lord Brahma is the incarnation of Rajoguna, and Lord Shiva is the incarnation of Tamoguna. Right? So this Guna Avatar, this is called as Avatar. So whenever we call somebody as an Avatar, we should know that it could probably Vishnu or it is not Vishnu. It could be a Jiva also. So how can a Jiva be called as Avatar? So that is mentioned, Shaktya-vesha Avatar. So either the Lord personally comes, or the Lord empowers a living entity with his Vishnu Shakti. The person who's doing it is not Vishnu, but he's been invested with the Vishnu Shakti. So such a category is called as a Shaktya-vesha Avatar, Shaktya Avesha. They are being possessed with the Vishnu Shakti. Just like somebody somebody may get possessed by a ghost, right? So it is a lower kind of a position. So here we say that Shaktya Avesha. So Lord Brahma is a living entity like us, and there is a procedure. If we follow the Varnashram system for 1,000 lifetimes properly, then we become eligible to the position of Lord Brahma, right? So such a person, Brahma, he is called as a Satyavesh avatar of the Lord. He is a Guna avatar. So Guna avatar means he is empowered with the potency of Rajoguna. Like he can create the entire material planetary system. So basically Lord Brahma is in Sattva-guna, but then he is the in charge of mode of passion. And in the same way, like Lord Shiva, he is also in topmost levels of Sattva-guna, but then he is in charge of the mode of ignorance. So Lord Shiva, we had many times discussed, Lord Shiva is coming in the category of Ishvara. He is almost like Supreme Lord Vishnu, but then no, his jurisdiction is only in the material world and not in the spiritual world, right? So not in the Vaikuntha. So Lord Shiva doesn't have an jurisdiction in the Vaikuntha. So he has only jurisdiction in the material world. So these three personalities are called as the Guna Avatar, the masters of the Trigunatmika Maya. No, so like the Sattva, Rajas, Tamas. No, they are the masters of these three gunas. So that is why it is mentioned here. No, and Lord Brahma, why he is the highest Vedic authority? Because he is the original Brahmana within this universe, and he has been initiated directly by the Supreme Lord Vishnu. No, Thene Brahma Hridaya Adi Kavaye. No, so like this Brahma Gyan, or the Vedic knowledge is been given to the Adi Kavi, the first and foremost scholar or first and foremost Brahmana of this whole creation is Lord Brahma. And then, no, that personality, that Supreme Lord, Thene Brahma, Brahma means here it talks about the Vedic knowledge, Thene Brahma, Hridaya Adi Kavaye. So in the heart of Lord Brahma, so the Vedic knowledge was revealed by the Supreme Lord, right? So that is why he is considered to be the highest Vedic authority, and whatever Lord Brahma says is the end of the discussion, right? So, and here Shukadeva Goswami is quoting Lord Brahma, right? And the Vedas were taught to Brahmaji in the beginning of the material creation, although Brahmaji was to hear Vedic instructions directly from the personality of Godhead in order to satisfy the inquisitiveness of all prospective students of the Vedas. Brahmaji, just like a scholar, studied the Vedas 3 times, as generally done by all scholars. He studied with great attention, concentrating on the purpose of the Vedas. And after scrutinizingly examining the whole process, he ascertained that becoming a pure, unalloyed devotee of Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, is the topmost perfection of all religious principles. And this is the last instruction of Bhagavad Gita, directly presented by the Personality of Godhead. The Vedic conclusion is thus accepted by all acharyas, and those who are against this conclusion are only Vedavadarathas. No, Vedavadaratha means like one who has studied the Veda and just for the sake of argument, just for the sake of dry speculation and things like that. They are not interested in the goal of the Vedas. They just simply want to take the Vedas and do something, do some crooked work. So such people are called Vedavadarata. So they cannot access the meaning of the Vedas. No, that is why in Bhagavad Gita also it is mentioned Raja Vidya, Rajaguhyam, Pavitram Idam Uttamam, Pratyaksha Vagamam Dharmyam, Susukam Kartum Avyayam. So it is like, this one Raja Vidya, Raja Vidya, Rajaguhyam. It's very, very difficult to understand this Vedic knowledge until unless the Lord or the devotees of the Lord can throw some light upon this thing. Otherwise, it is not possible. Now, if we are like Vedavadarata, we are trying to understand the Vedic scriptures on our own strength, we will not be able to reach this thing, reach the conclusion. So the Vedic conclusion, if somebody is properly reading and with a proper attitude of understanding the purpose of the Vedas, and not settling for any other whimsical this ones, so then definitely they will reach to the point, as Lord Brahmaji has reached in this particular sloka, that the attraction to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is the ultimate thing, right? Then text 35. Bhagavan sarva bhuteshu lakshitasvatmana harihi drishyair buddhyadibir drishta lakshanair anumapakaihi. The personality of Godhead, Lord Sri Krishna, is in every living being along with the individual soul. And this fact is perceived and hypothesized in our acts of seeing and taking help from the intelligence, right? So here it's mentioned that we can very easily see that the Supreme Lord is there with us. So some of the example which Prabhupada gives commonly in the classes is that when a small calf is born, how does it know like where its food is? So the Paramatma, he gives the intelligence, saying, okay, get up now and go here. No, you'll get your food. So he, the calf goes to the mother's udder, and then the calf gets the milk, right? So it is quite an amazing thing. So at the time, there is no intelligence, there is no previous knowledge, and just born calf. How will it know what it has to do? Right? In the way, like human beings, okay, like we have when the child is there, like so many people are there around and they take care and all. So animals, they give birth to their offsprings in the forest, in the like sometimes, like it is quite difficult circumstances and things like that. But then who's helping this newborn calf or newborn child? So it is the Supreme Lord, right? So he's there as the super soul, and he's giving the directions. And in the same way, like all of us are taking help from the intelligence, and from this we can very safely conclude that the Supreme Lord is there in the heart, and he is giving us directions, and he is giving us inspiration and things like that, right? So purport: the general argument of common man is that since the Lord is not visible to our eyes, how can one either surrender to him or render transcendental loving service unto him? To such a common man, here is a practical suggestion given by Srila Sukadeva Goswami as to how one can perceive the Supreme Lord by reason and perception. Actually, the Lord is not perceivable by our present materialized senses. But when one is convinced of the presence of the Lord by practical service attitude, there is a revelation by the Lord's mercy. And such a pure devotee of the Lord can perceive the Lord's presence always and everywhere. He can perceive that intelligence is the form direction of the Paramatma plenary portion of the personality of Godhead. The presence of Paramatma in everyone's company is not very difficult to realize, even for the common man. The procedure is as follows. One can perceive one's self-identification and feel positively that he exists. So we can know that we are existing. So like we are able to feel ourselves. We have a personality. We have a particular kind of a thought process and things like that. So we can know that I as a person exist, right? So, and he may not feel it very abruptly, but by using a little intelligence, he can feel that he is not the body. He can feel that the hands, the legs, the head, the hair, and the limbs are all his bodily parts and parcels. But as such, the hand, the leg, the head, etc., cannot be identified with his self. Therefore, just by using intelligence, he can distinguish and separate the self from other things that he sees, right? So the natural conclusion is that the living being, either man or beast, is the seer, and he sees beside himself all other things, right? So we are seeing, if I am able to see something, then I'm not that. No, it is something different from me, right? So I'm able to see my body, so it is something different from me. So like how can I see myself? No, that's not possible, right? So it is something of that sort. It is something like that. So so there is a difference between the seer and the seen. Now, by a little use of intelligence, we can also readily agree that the living being who sees the things beyond himself by ordinary vision has no power to see or to move independently. All our ordinary actions and perceptions depends on various forms of energy supplied by the nature in various combinations. Our senses of perception and action, that is to say, our five perceptive senses of hearing, touch, sight, taste, and smell, as well as our five senses of action: hands, legs, speech, evacuation, and reproduction organs, and also our three subtle senses, namely mind, intelligence, and ego, are supplied to us by various arrangements of gross and subtle forms of natural energy, right? So this is one nice aspect here. Here it's mentioned that all that we are taking help to see and perceive this world, or to do some action in this world, it is all some apparatus given to us, and it is not us actually. So all these various things are supplied to us by the material nature, for us to use in this material world. Okay, and it is, here we'll continue the purport, and it is equally evident that our objects of perception are nothing but the products of the inexhaustible permutations and combinations of the forms taken by the natural energy. So our senses which we are using for seeing, they are composed of matter, and the objects that we are seeing is also composed of matter only. It's different permutation combinations of matter. We are using matter to see matter. That's what is happening in this world. As this conclusively proves that the ordinary living being has no independent power of perception or of motion, And as we undoubtedly feel our existence being conditioned by nature's energy, we conclude that he who sees is spirit, and these senses, as well as the objects of perception, are material. So I am perceiving things of this world. No, I am the spirit, but the apparatus which I am using is material, and the objects I am no seeing is material. No, no, all these things are material. So that's what is mentioned here, right? The spiritual quality of seer is manifest in our dissatisfaction with the limited state of materially conditioned existence. So now how we can understand we are spirit souls? Because we have so much of material experience, but all of it is only frustration, and we are never satisfied with the material existence, right? So that is the difference between spirit and matter. Here it's mentioned. So there are some less intelligent arguments that matter develops the power of seeing and moving as a certain organic development. But such an argument cannot be accepted because there is no experimental evidence that matter has anywhere produced a living entity. This is a very, very powerful argument. So one may say, here Prabhupada established in his argument that the person who is seeing, that is me, the soul, is different from the apparatus that I'm using to see, that is like my eyes and things like that. And the objects that are present in this world, they are also matter. So we are only interacting with matter. And how we can know that we are spirit souls? Because all this interaction with matter is not giving me any satisfaction. So that means I must be something different from this matter. So that's the whole point that he's developed here. And then he is sorry. Where is this one? I'm sorry, like somehow it just got moved. Okay, so now there is the point of this intelligence and this power of seeing and all these things comes at a certain point of material development, and that's a theory, very good theory to hear from, but then there is no experimental evidence for that. Prabhupada always used to challenge that, can you produce a living entity in your laboratory? You are speaking so much about the chemicals at certain point in time becomes a living entity. Can you just produce one living entity and show in the laboratory? Put whatever chemicals you want, we will supply. You just take all the chemicals and produce one living entity. That is not possible. And okay, you don't need to produce a big living entity. We just produce one small mosquito and show me. We will agree that life comes from matter. It is not possible. It has never been done at any point in time. On the contrary, we see that life comes from spirit. Life comes from life. So we see that Prabhupada always gives the example of a lemon tree, right? So you can know, like, lemon is having citric acid, and so much of citric acid is there in so many lemons that are there in the tree. And what is the reason? There is one living entity, the tree. There is one living entity that is generating so much of chemicals. But we have never proved that you sow fried out lemon seed in the ground, nothing will come. A live seed, if we sow, then the tree actually comes, and then it has so much of citric acid in the whole tree. Like in the same way, only if there is a life, then there is chemicals that produce. Even in this body, we don't even know like what all chemicals, what all acids are getting produced in this body. Because the life is there, it is producing. Once the life goes off from this body, all chemical combination process, everything stops. That's all, right? So it is very important that matter doesn't produce life. It is the life that produces matter. It is the life that produces further life, right? So it is Krishna who produces the spirit and then matter, and then this only in connection with the spirit, the matter actually comes about. It is not in connection with matter, spirit comes about. That is never the case. Okay, so now we'll continue the purport. Trust no future, however pleasant. So we can never trust the future, however pleasant promises are given in this material world, because everything material is just inauspicious, right? So there is no pleasant things which are there in this future. Idle talks regarding future development of matter into spirit are actually foolish, because no matter has ever developed the power of seeing or moving in any part of the world. Therefore, it is definite that matter and spirit are two different entities, and this conclusion is arrived at by use of intelligence. No, this is like logic, no nyaya that has been put forward in this particular purport. Now we can come to the point that the things which are seen by a little use of intelligence cannot be animate unless we accept someone as the user of or director of the intelligence. The intelligence gives one's direction like some higher authority, and the living being cannot see or move or eat or do anything without the use of intelligence. Now we know, like those people who are mentally retarded, so no, it is very difficult for them to do anything in this world. It is quite difficult for them to even do the basic things. No, everything has to be told to them, and no, without the use of intelligence, no, we will be like a useless piece of flesh, that's all. So no, like this intelligence is guiding us, and who's guiding the intelligence? That is the super soul. So when one fails to take advantage of intelligence, he becomes a deranged man. And so a living being is dependent on intelligence or the direction of the superior being. Such intelligence is all pervading. Every living being has this intelligence, and this intelligence being the direction of some higher authority is just like a father giving direction to his son, the higher authority who is present and residing within every individual living being, the super self. Right, the super soul is giving this one like directions for all the living entities. At this point in our investigation, we may consider the following questions. On the one hand, we realize that all our perceptions and activities are conditioned by arrangements of material nature, yet we also ordinarily feel and say, I am perceiving, I am doing. Therefore we can say that our material senses of perception and action are moving because we are identifying the self with the material body, and that the superior principle of super self is guiding and supplying us according to our desire. So this is a very important point here. Now one may ask at this point that you see, like no, the everything is, we are completely materially conditioned. Without the support of matter, we cannot see even the other material things which are there in this world, right? So our knowledge acquiring senses, eyes, ears, nose, all these things are products of material nature. And it seems like the material nature is interacting with material nature, and no, I am fully dependent on them. If they don't supply me the necessary information, I cannot even perceive anything in this world, right? So we can know that people who are blind, who doesn't have eyes, or who doesn't have the power of vision, so the small piece of flesh which is there in the eye socket, it is not functioning properly, and then the information is not got, and I as a soul cannot perceive this world without the support of that. So that means, if you extrapolate that, we will come to the shloka that prakrite kriyamanani gunai karmani sarvasaha ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. So this shloka says that prakrite kriyamanani, everything is done by prakriti. Gunai karmani sarvasaha, the three modes of nature is doing everything of this world. Okay. So then ahankara vimudatma, a person who's full with ego, or false identification. Ahankara means like identifying oneself with the body is called the false ego. And ahankara vimuda atma, like muda means like dull headed person. Out of false ego, out of false identification with the material body, ahankara vimudatma, like because of that he has become completely dull, he is not able to see anything properly. Vimudatma karta aham iti manyate, I am the doer, I am perceiving, I am doing, whatever is mentioned here. So we come to that point. So if Prakriti is doing everything, then what is my role in this? What am I doing? Prakriti is just giving me this one knowledge and saying that, okay, this is what you see and things like that. And just before we saw another one, big bouncer, that is the intelligence is the one which is guiding us. If the intelligence doesn't guide, we will become almost a deranged person. Nothing we can do in this world. Imagine, like, I think almost all of you would have seen some people who are mentally retarded, like pagal log. And like, no, pagal means like, no, too much of activity. Like, no, there are people who are mentally completely retarded. No, they cannot do anything on their own. No, they don't have any sense of thought process. So that thought process is given by intelligence, and that is controlled by the Supreme Lord. No, like, if intelligence is controlled by the Supreme Lord, and everything that is happening in this world is done by the material nature, then what is my role at all? Why karma? Why this? Why that? No, why all these things are, no, imposed upon me? Because there is one thing that is there in my hand, that is the desire, right? So this is what is there. So that superior principle, no, here the last line of this no screen I'm reading, that the superior principle of the super self is guiding and supplying us according to our desire, right? So we are, no, we are like, whatever desires we have, according to that the Lord is giving me intelligence, according to that the material nature is acting. And like, if I have desires, then I may harm and I may create a lot of havoc in this world. So then the aspect of karma is attached. Okay, you have your desire, the other person also has his desire. If you go in the way of other person's desire, then you'll have to come and enjoy the karma, right? So like, I generally give this example: if two children are there and they are playing with some toys, and no, suddenly, like, one child is like, no, fighting with the other child, and no, both of them are fighting, and then the parent comes and says, okay, fine, no, you people were like, this resource of toy is being given to you for enjoyment, but then you are fighting. So let me make a rule that, from this time to this time this child will play, from this time to this time this child will play, right? So Ishavashamidam sarvam yatkincham jagatyam jagat thena takthena bunjita magrita kasya suddhanam. What has been allotted to me, only that much I should access in this world. So this is how the Lord puts the rule. So then, like, once that rule is put, if the other child goes and like, takes the toy when he's not legitimately supposed to take it, then complaint goes, then punishment comes, right? So in the same way, that is what is a karma. So practically, like, we also do this, we also like design this laws of karma for people under us. What if you do, I'll be happy, what if you do, I'll punish, and things like that. So we have very practical experience with all our relatives and all our known people around us. So we put rules and regulations. If you do like this, I'll be happy, otherwise I'll like, what is it, I'll show my angry face. So all this thing is there. So in the same way, here the living entity is having desire, the Lord is fulfilling. Eko bahunam yo vidadati kaman. No, the Lord is fulfilling the kaman, or desires, of all the living entities, right? So though everything is done by the material nature, and the intelligence and inspiration is given by the Lord, so still, what inspiration the Lord is giving, generally, whatever desires I had in the past, the Lord is going to remind me of, saying that, you see, like, no, you had this desire and now is the opportunity, go for it, right? So the Lord is going to do like that. That's what the Lord has been doing all the time. And when a devotee comes in our life, he says, no, stop it, no, don't go in this way, no, you have to take shelter of the Lord, and then, no, you have to worship the Lord, and that is the perfection of life. So then, when I put this desire into the mind of a person, then the Lord in the form of intelligence, Lord in the form of Paramatma within the heart, so he also supports. Now the living entity has a desire, I want to surrender unto you, my Lord. Then now the Lord supports the Lord. Now the Lord paves the way for the living entity to surrender, right? And why then, after I take up to Krishna consciousness, why then I have to go through so much of difficulty? Because of cleaning my desire. That is the only problem which is there in this whole creation. I have to clean my desire completely. No, that is the only thing. No, that is why sometimes people ask, why even devotees have to go through so much of difficulty and misery? So the Lord is doing everything, anything and everything, with us. No, sometimes he gives us happiness, sometimes he gives us misery. His only business is that, how can I make this person's desire completely purified? That is the only business of the Lord. No, that is the only thing that he's seeing for devotees. And for the non-devotees, no, the Lord is showing his love and affection by the way of, no, okay, whatever you desire, I will give you the way to achieve it. No, that's the way the Lord is like behaving with the non-devotees. And when a person takes up to devotional service, then the Lord supports, that by the way of helping him. So the Lord is doing such a what is that, such a menial service for all the living entities. Whatever we have been thinking of, even if it is useless, even if it is bakwas and things like that, the Lord has been supporting us and helping us all the time. So who else is there in this life we can surrender up to? No, who else is there who's more caring for us, more loving for us, unto whom we can surrender unto, right? So this is that personality, who's been helping us both in devotional service and also in the material world, and taking us through, like being with us through all the different lifetimes. Even if we suffer karma, the Lord says, okay, I am your best well-wishing friend. No, you are suffering, because you have done something wrong to another living entity. No, I love that living entity also. That's why you have to suffer. But then I love you also. That's why I will also suffer in conjointly with you. I will also go through the same suffering what you are going through, being as Paramatma, right? So this is the love and affection of the Lord. He may punish us, but then he will also undergo the suffering with us, right? So that is the position of the Lord. He's very, very merciful person, right? So he's not kind of a sadist who's punishing somebody. No, whatever punishments he is giving us, he's also like, being a party of it. It's like, if a prisoner is sent to the jail, and the person who's ordered the imprisonment, he also goes with him and sits with him in the jail house. What is the need for the Lakshmipati, the Supreme Lord, to come and sit in the heart, as Paramatma, with me? Right? Okay, now I can imagine, like, I am sitting in a nice house and things like that and all. Think of a body of a pig. The pig is going in the gutter, and this living entity has done such an abominable action. The Lord is dwelling as Paramatma even in his body, and he is willing to go inside the gutter, with that living entity, right? So that is the extreme levels of compassion that the Lord has, right? So we should take advantage of all this thing, and we should understand how great this personality is, and how helping this personality is, how loving this personality is. And we should try to surrender to this personality, who's waiting for us since ages and ages and ages, and since so many lifetimes. In this lifetime, we may be expecting that, if I have some good wealth, it will be nice. We are expecting, and if we have some, good, so many things, like, if I have this in my life, it is nice. If I have this person in my life, it is nice. If I have, so many things, the Lord is also, anxiously waiting for us like that. Rather than, see, the thing that we are anxiously waiting for, they may serve us or they may not serve us, we don't know. Like, sometimes my mother tells that, I went through so much of prayers and tapasya and things like that to beget you, and now you have gone to like, you have just gone to the temple. And no, so in this way, like, we don't know, like, whether our children will be like, of course, like, we have made some arrangement to take care of the parents, but then we don't know, like, the people like whom we are banking upon, will they actually take care of us? But then the Lord who is taking care of all the living, the Lord who's personally taking care of me since so many lifetimes, why not I turn my side towards him? He's been taking care of me so much in so many lifetimes. Why not I turn towards him? Right? So we are looking for somebody whom we don't know, like, whether they will take care of me or not. Rather than that, we can look upon to somebody who's already taking care of us. That is the Supreme Lord. So we have to develop this attitude towards the Lord in this way, that like, he's the one I'm looking for. He's the one who can fulfill all my desires, and he's the one who's perfectly matching for me, right? So that's how we should look upon the Lord, right? Okay, so anyways, we just went on a tangent here. By taking advantage of the guidance of the super self in the form of intelligence, we can either continue to study and to put into practice our conclusion that I am not this body, or we can choose to remain in the false material identification, fancying ourselves to be the professors and doers. Our freedom contains in orienting our desires either towards the ignorant material conception or truth, spiritual conception. So we can orient either towards ignorance or towards the truth, that is spiritual conception. We can easily attain to the true spiritual conception by recognizing the super self Paramatma to be our friend and guide, and by dovetailing our intelligence with the superior intelligence of Paramatma. The super self and the individual self are both spirit, and therefore the super self and the individual self are both qualitatively one and distinct from matter. But the super self and the individual self cannot be on the equal level, because the super self gives direction or supplies intelligence, and the individual self follows the directions, and thus actions are performed properly. Individual is completely dependent on the direction of the super self, because in every step the individual self follows the direction of the super self in the matter of seeing, hearing, thinking, feeling, and willing, etc. As far as common sense is concerned, we come to the conclusion that there are three identities, namely matter, spirit, and super spirit. So that is the body and Atma, and then the Paramatma. Like, okay. So now if we go to the Bhagavad Gita or Vedic intelligence, we can further understand that all three identities, namely matter, individual spirit, and the super spirit, are all dependent on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The super self is a partial representation or the plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. See, the Paramatma is a plenary portion, or it's an expansion of the Supreme Lord, and the Supreme Lord is Krishna himself. So the Bhagavad Gita affirms that the Supreme Personality of Godhead dominates over all material world by his partial representation only. God is great, and he cannot be simply an order supplier of the individual selves. Therefore, the super self cannot be a full representation of the Supreme Self, Purushottama, the absolute personality of Godhead. So now there are four entities are there. So one is Sharira, that is the matter, and then the Atma, that is the living entity, then Paramatma, so that is the Supreme Lord residing in the heart, and then the source of the Paramatma, that is the Purna Purushottama, the Supreme Lord. So the four things that are mentioned here, right? Sharira, Atma, Paramatma, and the Purushottama, the Supreme Lord. And realization of the super self by the individual self is the beginning of self-realization. No, the Atma trying to realize the Paramatma is the beginning of self-realization. And by the progress of such self-realization, one is able to realize the Supreme Personality of Godhead by intelligence, by the help of authorized scriptures, and practically by the grace of the Lord. Now, this is a very, very important thing. So we may use scriptures, we may use intelligence and all those things, but then, principally by the grace of the Lord. So the mercy of the Lord is the most important factor. So Lord Brahma in the 10th canto, he says that prasada lesanugahita evaye janati tattvam bhagavan mahimna. So that means prasada lesha, that means even a slight mercy of the Lord is definitely necessary. Without that, it is not possible to understand the Supreme Personality of God, the Supreme Lord. It is not possible. Only by the mercy of the Lord we can understand him. And just before we saw that the Lord is not going to come and tell us that this is the path of self-realization. He's going to give us facilities for our material thought process only. Then how we will get to know about this thing? Then how we will get the mercy of the Lord? It is only through the devotees of the Lord, we get the mercy of the Lord, right? So only the devotees of the Lord comes and says that, no, you see that you're taking the Lord as an order supplier, and you have been asking for so many material desires from the Lord. Stop all these things and start serving him. He is your master, he is your everything. Please start serving the Supreme Lord. So that is the job of a devotee. A devotee knocks at the door, and then he says this, kindly surrender unto the Supreme Lord. So, and that is when a person can start understanding the spiritual life. Otherwise, there is no possibility of a person understanding spiritual life. Okay. So the Bhagavad Gita is the preliminary conception of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, and Srimad Bhagavatam is the further explanation of the science of Godhead. So if we stick to our determination and pray to the mercy of the Director of Intelligence, sitting within the same bodily tree like a bird sitting with another bird, which is explained in the Kathopanishad, certainly, and the purport of revealed information of the Vedas become clear to our vision, and there is no difficulty in realizing the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudev. The intelligent man, therefore, after many births of such use of intelligence, surrenders unto himself at the lotus feet of Vasudev, as confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 7:19. No, Jnanavam mam prapadyate bahunam janmanamante. No, Vasudevam sarvamiti. Like, no, that's the thing which Prabhupada is mentioning here. Text 36. Tasmat sarvatmana rajan hari sarvatra sarvada shrotavya kirtitavyascha smartavyo bhagavan nrinam. So it's a very nice shloka. O king, it is therefore essential that every human being hear about, glorify, and remember the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead, always and everywhere. Right? So it is very nice shloka, even if we want to memorize. Tasmat sarvatmana rajan. No, that tasmat means therefore. Sarvatmana means like for everyone. No, rajan hari sarvatra sarvada. No, like shrotavya kirtitavyasya. Shrotavya means to hear. Kirtitavyasya means like to describe about him or glorify him or to chant the holy names of the Lord. Right? So, like when we have to do sarvatra sarvada, no, everywhere and every time. No, smartavyo bhagavan rinam. So this is amazing, this one. Let's see the purport. Srila Sukadeva Goswami begins this verse with the word tasmat, or therefore, because in the previous verses he has already explained that there is no auspicious means for salvation other than the sublime process of Bhakti Yoga. The Bhakti Yoga process is practiced by the devotees in different methods like hearing, chanting, remembering, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, worshipping, praying, rendering service in love, becoming friendly, and offering all that one may possess. Right? Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Pada Sevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dashyam, Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. Right? Now, and all 9 methods are bona fide methods, and either all of them, or some of them, or even one of them can bring about the desired result for the sincere devotee. But out of all the 9 different methods, the first one, namely hearing, is most important function in the process of Bhakti Yoga. That is why when we are chanting, which is the Yoga Dharma, so when we are chanting, the hearing process is very, very important. We have to hear the holy names that we are chanting, and that's the perfection of our bhakti, right? And without hearing sufficiently and properly, no one can make any progress by any of the methods of practice. And for hearing, only all the Vedic literatures are there, compiled by authorized persons like Vyasadeva, who is powerful incarnation of Godhead. And since it has been ascertained that the Lord is the super soul of everything, he should therefore be heard and glorified everywhere and always. That is a special duty of the human being. When the human being gives up the process of hearing about the all-pervading personality of Godhead, he becomes victim to hearing rubbish transmitted by man-made missions. Now we can see that all this Netflix and YouTube and whatnot, all those things are transmitting so much of rubbish content, and every day people are just looking upon that, social media. And machinery is not bad, because through the machine one can take advantage of hearing about the Lord. And because machinery is used for ulterior purposes, it is creating rapid degradation in the standard of human civilization. It is said here that in the incumbent upon the human being to hear, because the scriptures like Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam are made for that purpose. Living beings other than human beings have no ability to hear such Vedic literatures. If human society gives itself to the process of hearing the Vedic literature, it will not become a victim to the impious sounds vibrated by impious men who degrade the standard of total society. Hearing is solidified by the process of chanting. One who has perfectly heard from the perfect source becomes convinced about all pervading personality of Godhead, and thus becomes enthusiastic in glorifying the Lord. All the great acharyas like Ramanuja, Madhva, Chaitanya, Saraswati Thakur, or even in other countries, Muhammad, Christ, others, have all extensively glorified the Lord by chanting always in every place. Because the Lord is all pervading, it is essential to glorify him always and everywhere. In the process of glorifying the Lord, there should be no restriction of time and space. This is called Sanatana Dharma or Bhagavata Dharma. Sanatana means eternal, always, everywhere. Bhagavata means pertaining to Bhagavan, the Lord. The Lord is the master of all time and space, and therefore the Lord's holy name must be heard, glorified, and remembered everywhere in the world. That will bring about desired peace and prosperity, so eagerly awaited by the people of the world. The word cha includes all the remaining processes or methods of Bhakti Yoga as mentioned above. Okay, it's exactly 3 o'clock, and we are there in the last sloka of this chapter 37. And I've been thinking that I'll finish this chapter in day before yesterday, and yesterday somehow it got extended. If all of you don't mind, we can just finish this sloka also, and it may take another 5-10 minutes. No, before that it may get finished. So we will just finish this sloka, and then we will call it off for today, right? So pibanti ye bhagavata atmanas satam katamritam shravana puteshu sambritam punanti te vishaya vidushithashayam vrajanti tacharana saroruhantikam. Those who drink through oral reception, it's like pibanti, it is the word pibanti is used, that means drinking. But then how is the drinking? We are not drinking through mouth, we are drinking through ears. Pibanti, what is that? It's mentioned pibanti ye bhagavata atmana satam kathamritam, the katha amrita, the glories of the Lord, which is like nectar. Shravana puteshu, it's like shravana puteshu, within the ear holes. Shravana puteshu, here it is described, right? Within the ear holes. So somebody who can take that, those who drink through oral reception, fully filled with the nectarian message of Lord Krishna, the beloved of the devotees, purify the polluted aim of life known as material enjoyment, and thus go back to Godhead, to the lotus feet of Him, the personality of Godhead. So this is a very, very powerful sloka which is mentioned. It is a very good incentive, or a very good, we can say that it's a prize for all those who are hearing every single day. We are hearing this, and this process is going to take us back to the spiritual world, unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. It's the most powerful process, right? Purport: the suffering human society are due to a polluted aim of life, namely lording it over the material resources. The more human society engages in exploitation of undeveloped material resources for sense gratification, the more it will be entrapped by illusory material energy of the Lord, and thus the distress of the world will be intensified instead of diminished. The human necessities of life are fully supplied by the Lord in the shape of food grains, milks, fruit, wood, stone, sugar, silk, jewels, cotton, salt, water, vegetables, etc., in sufficient quantity to feed and care for human race of the world, as well as living beings on each and every planet within the universe. The supply source is complete, and only a little energy by the human being is required to get his necessities into proper channel. So whenever there is no shortage of resources and things like that and all, Prabhupada writes a very nice statement in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita. The whole creation is complete, being a creation of the Supreme Lord, who is Himself complete, right? Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. So even if you remove a complete unit from the Lord, Purnam Eva Avisishyate, what remains is Purnam, that is the Supreme Lord. So how can the Lord's creation be in such a way that it is having a shortage? That is means, like the Prabhupada says, it is only incomplete understanding of the complete makes us in this way, like we are trying to mismanage the Lord's resources, which are complete in itself. Here it is, the Vedic scriptures are saying the Lord has provided for everyone at every time, and still if I am finding some shortage, it is my problem. It is not the Lord's problem. I have mismanaged things. That's why I'm not getting things properly. So the supply source is complete, and only a little energy by the human being is required to get his necessities into proper channel. There is no need of machines and tools or huge steel plant for artificially creating comforts of life. Life is never made comfortable by artificial needs, but by plain living and high thinking. The highest professional thinking for human society is suggested here by Shukadeva Goswami, namely sufficiently hearing Srimad Bhagavatam. For men in the age of Kali, when they have lost the perfect vision of life, this Srimad Bhagavatam is the torchlight by which to see the real path. Srila Jiva Goswami Prabhupada has commented on the Kathamritam mentioned in this verse and has indicated Srimad Bhagavatam to be the nectarian message of personality of Godhead. By sufficient hearing of Srimad Bhagavatam, the polluted aim of life, namely lording it over matter, will subside, and the people in general in all parts of the world will be able to live peaceful life of knowledge and bliss. For a pure devotee of Lord, any topics in relation with his name, fame, quality, entourage, etc., are pleasing. And because such topics have been approved by great devotees like Narada, Hanuman, Nanda Maharaj, and other inhabitants of Vrindavan, certainly such messages are transcendental and pleasing to the heart and soul. And by constant hearing of the messages of Bhagavad Gita and later of Srimad Bhagavatam, one is assured herein by Srila Shukadev Goswami that he will reach the personality of Godhead and render him transcendental loving service in the spiritual planet of the name Goloka Vrindavan, which resembles a huge lotus flower. Thus, by the process of Bhakti Yoga, directly accepted as suggested in this verse, by sufficient hearing of transcendental message of Lord, the material contamination is directly eliminated without once attempting to contemplate the impersonal Virata conception of the Lord. And by practicing Bhakti Yoga, if the performer is not purified from the material contamination, he must be a pseudo devotee. No, after performing Bhakti Yoga, if he is not getting purified, he must be a pseudo devotee. He must be a cheating devotee. Right? For such an impostor, there is no remedy for being freed from material entanglement. Right? In the previous shloka also Srila Prabhupada was mentioning that if one is sufficiently hearing the Srimad Bhagavatam in a proper mood, then chanting automatically happens, right? So in that way, one important lesson that we can take is, more we hear Bhagavatam, our chanting should become more and more better. Our hearing of each and every syllable of the chanting should become more and more better. And if we just give proper attention to our chanting, we will experience so much of bliss, which is undescribable, which is really, really very amazing, to chant with a lot of absorption. So, put a lot of emphasis on this. And then it is mentioned that if we do this thing, in Bhagavatam, many, many times it is mentioned, no kramena, or not kramena, it is like very soon, very soon you will attain the Supreme Lord. So that is the verdict that is mentioned. If we are properly hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, very, very soon we will attain the Supreme Lord. It is not, kalena na ati dirgaina. That is one of the words that are used in Srimad Bhagavatam. So without much time, we will be able to get this thing, right? So very, very quickly we can get it. Only thing that is necessary is, when Bhagavatam we hear with lot of attention and absorption, and chanting, we chant and hear with lot of attention and absorption, all perfection of life will be attained, right? So thank you very much for your patient listening. So we will stop here for today. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Hare Krishna.